Hello, Skallagrim. My name is Sky, and sir, I've been watching your videos for years. They're amazing. Thank you for doing them. I have a question of you. I would like to ask your opinion. I have an idea for a TV show called A Gang of Daggers, and the premise of the show is a group of high school students, the nerds, discover a portal to another world and decide, well, let's become mercenaries. Let's learn how to fight and sell our services on this other world. And so the show would follow their misadventures of being a mercenary band in a, you know, landscape similar to Europe before the Romans took over. Like even Bronze Age, I'm thinking. So chieftains, small armies, no horses. That's the other thing, is that just foot armies at the most is what you're saying, and little reliance on archers as well. That's what people are saying. What I'm curious about and would like your opinion on is, say you got a bunch of guys create this show in Canada, and let's say young men 18 and older, like people who have martial arts backgrounds and are willing and ready to learn like a form of stage combat. Because when I think of the trainers for this show, I keep thinking stage combat, professional wrestling, ballerinas, boxers, and even HEMA, HEMA type fighting, and just get some guys together and say like, okay, what we have here is a group of individuals, and probably start out with a small school, is what I'm thinking, because like I'd have a whole school involved, sort of pantomiming and going through the motions of being a high school, but they are learning filming, and they're learning stagecraft, they're learning stage combat. So imagine a massive dojo of, take over the whole gymnasium and the football field, just training people in whatever, getting them in shape for 1 to 2 hours each morning, 5 days a week, even taking them on runs on Fridays to build up the stamina. And so going through the basics of like, okay, here's basic moves with hand to hand, here's basic moves with a dagger, here's basic moves with a sword, now include a shield, now include spears, include wooden staffs, axes, slowly start introducing, and yeah, I think like some of those basic sort of weapons, and alright, go from there. So different kinds of shields, and start with small unit, 5. Like I keep thinking that the way the dagger, the way this elite group of fighters would train is they would learn how to fight one on one, especially with the dagger. Just get to the point like dagger becomes second nature, and you have your shield and your sword, and get in combat, and like next thing if you have to just drop the shield and pull the dagger out of nowhere and just get a guy, they're able to make it happen. They learn how to fight on their own, and then they also learn how to fight with a buddy. So 2-on-1. They always realize, never think that you are the best by yourself. It's always, can we overpower the opponent? Like, we're not going for finesse, for skill, for like showing off. This is, well, I guess finesse, communication. Because the way I imagine the magic in this environment working is they have a sort of chat room psychic link between themselves. Like they play soccer together. They just have this innate sense of where each other are and just what they're doing in a battlefield, but then also in a combat. So like they train like a SWAT team as well. So the 1-on-1, but then 2-on-1, even 3-on-1 in some cases. And like if you get a really good opponent who could just like really deflect and really hold off, knows how to hold off however many opponents with a spear, one guy engages, one guy attacks from the side, and then the next guy or the third guy attacks from the behind, totally unaware, and you're able to subdue the opponent quickly. So like just amazing weather tactics, and then like 2-on-1, 2-on-2, 2-on-3, 2-on-4 even, and like just keep building up these different combinations of fighters together, and with the dagger, they just do it to the nth level. So, but that's the thing. You'd have two groups of people who operate together but also independently. Film-wise, what you see is the dagger slowly build themselves up and become better. Behind the scenes, these large group of young men and women, they're training all together, 1 to 2 hours a day, learning the stage combat style, and it's like, I think of the group of the high school as the kill team. And so these guys would get to the point, you have a range of fighters from mediocre to elite, and you would just train these guys on, learn to operate on a scale of 0 to 10 in terms of like just how, or 0 to 5, I guess, in terms of like, cowardly, like you're afraid as soon as the enemy does something, like you run away, to like, all right, I know what I'm somewhat doing with my weapon, and like, okay, now I'm ready to fight, I'm ready to, take on the opponent, like I'm gonna, to the point of, all right, I am an elite fighter with this weapon, I'm gonna take this guy out, and nothing's gonna stop me. And that's the kill team. And as the director, I would tell these guys, like, okay, if I have however many opponents for the dagger, because I'm also thinking of this show as a sort of Dungeons and Dragons sort of methodology in terms of, I want the fights to play out realistically. In terms of, we can movie magic in blood, gore, and details. The fights would always, you try to get the cameras in place, is the way I'm kind of thinking of it. It's not that the action is taking place off camera. It's like you're not gonna have close-ups necessarily of what happens. You'll see two guys fight. Like with the training montages, you'll see the close-ups. You understand like, well, what happens when these guys fight, and so that could be the interesting thing of the shows, is that if somebody dies in that episode, you could show a training montage, at the beginning of the episode, showing these guys training with the weapons, and like, well, how would you, what happened? And so then later on, when you see the actual fight, like, you understand, like, oh, that's sort of the takedowns that they did on these opponents that they encountered. But anyways, like, that's the drama of the show, is the dagger. You never know who's going to die in a fight. That's the premise I am operating on. So if you have a sparring match where you have armor, but potentially you are going to try to play it as if you have a weapon. So if a blade comes out, then it's just understood, like, well, if you're fighting a guy with a dagger, and you see a dagger come out in any situation, you're dead. And you just have to play it off. And they're like, well, yeah, that's cool. You accept it. They're like, yeah, they're the dagger. They're these elite guys. But otherwise, would it be realistic? Would it play out, in your opinion, on a television show, to see and it would be a challenge of like how to film it, because I'm thinking of the cameraman as wearing like the bright green or whatever camouflage, like bright pink even, colors, just like they stand out and nobody looks at it, nobody worries about it, but they're aware. Like they would have to stand out, like nobody's going to hit them or hurt them in this whatever chaotic environment you have, because I want to get to the point where I would be able to film armies clashing, and just go through the process, in front of the camera of like small unit combat, like 3-5 men at each other, and like, okay, once we get there, okay, now build it up to stage some sort of like build a village and create streets that you can set up cameras on, and then in the streets now you're gonna have guys fight. They're gonna guys climb over a wall because they're gonna invade. So now you have to fight. Play that out. how does it look, and make it dark nighttime because with limited light, that way you can hide whatever blood and gore, but the people involved, they get the sense of like, okay, this is because they're gonna mess up. That's the other thing. Like a lot of whatever you do, like you mess up at. So, and that way you can sort of play out and figure out like, okay, well, how does it, the combat work out? But slowly build up the numbers of men, and that's why the walls of the village, it sort of gives them like a sort of straight edge and like, okay, because then the next step is like, all right, now add on more people, to the point of shield wall action. Can you film a shield wall and sort of play out a LARPing live action role playing, but like with the actors and the people, the stage combat, choreography, fighters, whatever, stunt men, women, you guys understand like, okay, if you get hit in the face, you lose an eye, kind of thing. Like, you got to play it off or whatever. So how do you do it? What's going to happen? And because you then have to also read descriptions of these ancient battles and think like, okay, how many people will die in a battle? Like what was happening, or if it was skirmish or sort of thing. So you could imagine, I think, unless there's overwhelming odds, if there's even actions, they were like, well, can we get an advantage? Like we'll square off. We'll look at each other. Maybe we'll get close to get towards each other. Do we have archers? Do we have arrows? No. All right. So we got to go with shields and spears. All right. We don't have cavalry. What do we got? And so play it off. Or like just sort of size it up. Like, okay, we're not going to fight. We'll just back off because we tried. Clashed some metal, some wood. That was it, and we couldn't quite bring ourselves to the bloodlust. Like, can we make these guys break? Can we make these guys scatter because we're pushing at them with our spears? So, and in the case of the dagger, it's always like, well, a couple guys with spears and shields, but they just surround, a Shaka Zulu style, just surprise, surprise the enemy, the opponents, always, because of the dagger. So, but yeah, so what do you think, sir? Love to hear your opinion.